It started the week after the funeral. The flowers had wilted. The calls stopped coming. The silence in the house became louder than any grief I'd ever known. We were married for 22 years. He was steady, predictable. The kind of man who cleaned his car every Saturday morning, drank the same brand of coffee for a decade, and never went to sleep without brushing his teeth exactly at 10:30. He wasn't affectionate, not overly emotional, but he was always there. Reliable, quiet. So when the accident happened and he didn't come home that day, the world felt off its axis. But what really started everything wasn't his death. It was what he left behind. The house was too clean, too organized. Almost clinical. Our shared bedroom still smelled like him. That faint mix of cologne and aftershave. I left it untouched for days. Relatives came, helped me go through papers. His sister packed up his old clothes. I sorted out the finances, the death certificates, the accounts. Every drawer, every shelf, every cabinet, except one place. The garage. He always kept it locked. Said it was just a bunch of junk, or nothing you need to worry about. Over the years I asked a few times, mostly when I needed extra space for storage. He'd always reply with the same half-smile. That's my cave. You've got the rest of the kingdom. I never pushed. Now standing there, keys in hand, I felt something strange. Not curiosity. A kind of tension. Like I was about to open a room in someone else's life. Not my husband's. The lock was old. Rusted. Clicked open with almost no resistance. The door creaked. The air smelled like sawdust, metal, and something older. Like the kind of silence that had been sitting there for years. At first glance, it was exactly what I expected. Dusty shelves, toolboxes, paint cans, a folded ladder. But something felt off. There were no cobwebs. No mess. Everything was organized. Too organized. Labeled boxes. Stacked envelopes. A small workbench completely clean. And sitting right in the middle of it, a small digital voice recorder. Its red light blinking slowly. Still powered on. Picked it up, confused. Press play. A voice came through the tiny speaker. If you're listening to this, I lied to you. My chest tightened. It was him. I dropped the recorder, my hand shaking. The sound kept playing, tinny and hollow on the floor. I didn't want to die without telling you. But if you're hearing this, I guess I did. Picked it back up slowly. Sat on the old metal stool beside the bench. His voice was calm, measured, like he was reading off a script. There are things in this garage you'll find. Documents, maybe photos. Don't be scared. Just don't ignore them. You deserve the truth. That's when I looked closer. Behind the shelf, taped to the back wall. Dozens of manila folders. All labeled. Some with dates. Some with just single words. Texas. Invoices. Briggs. Blue Room. My heart was pounding. What had I just stepped into? That's when it hit me. This wasn't his garage. This was a life he'd kept hidden from me. And now, I had to decide if I really wanted to know who he was. 'Cause clearly, he wasn't the man I thought I married. I stared at those manila folders for a long time. Not because I was scared of what they contained, but because I was scared of what they might confirm. I had spent over 2 decades with this man. I knew his voice better than my own thoughts. And yet, in that moment I realized, I only knew the version of him he allowed me to see. I took a deep breath and pulled the first folder off the wall. The label read simply, Briggs. That name meant nothing to me. Not a friend. Not family. Not even a coworker I remembered. Inside were receipts. Dozens of them. Wire transfers. International ones. $9, $800, $15, $401 for $28,000. All to the same name, Elliot Briggs. There were also letters. Not printed. Handwritten. In his handwriting. Pages and pages of them. One line from the first one burned into my brain. I've kept your secret for years, but if anyone ever finds this, it was never supposed to go this far. The handwriting was his. Unmistakably his. But who was this Elliot? And what secret? Next, I opened the folder labeled Blue Room. First I thought it was a blueprint. But no, it was a floor plan. Of a storage unit. With numbers, names, and keys listed. There was a photo clipped to the top right corner. Grainy, taken from a distance. Showed him, my husband, standing in front of a metal storage unit with a man I didn't recognize. I flipped the photo over. A sticky note was attached. Unit number 317. Downtown lockup. Key in drawer. I checked the drawer under the workbench. And there it was. Single key. Bright blue plastic cover. Unlabeled. By this point, my brain wasn't even processing fear anymore. It was running on something else, instinct. Curiosity. Maybe the need for answers so I could properly let him go. Whatever it was, I took that key and drove straight to the address listed. The place looked exactly like you'd expect. Old gray concrete, dusty rolling doors, a cracked neon sign that said, Downtown Lockup. Since 1989. I gave the clerk the number. He handed me the gate code. When I opened unit #317, my entire body went cold. It wasn't junk. It was evidence. Stacks of printed documents. Legal papers. Ledgers. Boxes of cash. Literal cash, banded and sealed. And inside a file box, 2 passports, one with his name, and one with a different identity. Same face, different life. I sat down on the concrete floor, staring at those 2 passports. Who was he? The man I married loved crossword puzzles. He hated airports. He got nervous around police. He once cried watching a nature documentary about elephants. So how did that man have another identity? A storage unit full of cash, and international wire transfers going to someone he was keeping secrets for. Didn't make sense. But it was real. And now I couldn't just walk away. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even know what I wanted. But I knew one thing for sure. His secrets didn't die with him. And if he wasn't going to answer my questions, I'd find someone who would. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with the 2 passports laid out in front of me. One bore the name Daniel Hughes, my husband. The other said Samuel Brent. Same photo. Same man. Different lives. Who was he? I spent hours comparing dates, looking for overlaps. I even Googled Elliot Briggs, the man he'd wired money to. Nothing. No LinkedIn. No obituary. No news. Just a few mentions in shady lawsuit documents on forums that hadn't been updated in years. The next morning I decided to go back to the garage. This time I pulled down every folder, every file. There was one more labeled, internal use only. It was different. Black marker, no handwriting, just a stamp. Inside. A USB drive. I plugged it into my old laptop, half expecting it to fry the whole thing. But it opened normally. There were 3 files. All video. All security footage. The first video showed him, my husband, speaking in a room I didn't recognize. He was sitting at a table, facing 2 people in suits. No sound. Just body language. He looked calm. They looked stern. Government. FBI. Private intelligence. Why was he sitting there? The second video was shorter. It was shot inside a warehouse. The camera moved fast, as if someone was filming in secret. You could barely make out what was happening, but in the corner again him. Signing papers. Shaking hands with a man whose face was blurred. The third file was audio only. You can't keep this hidden forever. If anything happens to me, she'll find it. Let her. It was his voice again. And that line changed everything. Let her. He expected me to uncover this. That same afternoon I started getting strange calls. No caller ID. Just silence on the other end. 4 times in 2 hours. No voicemail. No breathing. Just click. The 5th call came around 9 p.m. This time a voice. You need to stop. It was male. Flat. Unemotional. Not robotic, but cold. Like someone reading a warning without any care for who was listening. Froze. You don't know what you're touching. You weren't supposed to open anything. Leave it alone. Then silence. I sat there staring at my phone, my chest heavy with something unfamiliar. It wasn't fear. It wasn't confusion. It was the realization that my dead husband wasn't just keeping secrets. He was part of something bigger, something dangerous. And I was now standing in the very place he tried to protect me from. Had a choice. Let it go. Pretend I never saw any of it. Sell the house. Move on. Let the memory of him be just that. A memory. Or keep digging. Find out who Elliot Briggs really was. What Blue Room meant. Why my husband thought I deserved the truth, even if it came with danger. I looked at the blinking cursor on my laptop, then opened a new document. Title: Everything He Hid From Me. Because now this wasn't about closure. This was about identity. His, and maybe mine too. 2 days after the warning call, I booked a train ticket under my maiden name. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not even my sister. I left Max, our old dog, with a neighbor and packed only the essentials. The USB drive, the folders, the passports, and a printed copy of one particular address I found buried in the paperwork. Briggs Hardware, Bridgeport. Listed under an old business registration. Dissolved 11 years ago. I arrived late evening. Bridgeport was a sleepy, industrial town that looked like it hadn't changed since the 80s. Found the building. Or what was left of it. The paint was peeling. The windows were covered in dust and metal bars. But the door. 'Twas new. Someone still used this place. I knocked. No answer. I was about to turn back when I heard the latch click. A man opened the door, maybe late 60s. Silver beard, denim jacket, eyes sharp as a hawk. He didn't say a word. Just stared at me for a few long seconds. "You're her," he finally said. "Daniel's wife." We sat in a dusty backroom. No lights, just a lamp hanging from a hook. I laid the folders on the table. He didn't ask how I found them. He didn't even act surprised. He just nodded, as if it was all playing out exactly as expected. "He told me one day you'd come." "Told you what?" "Yes. That you'd either destroy everything he built, or finish it." My mouth went dry. And then he explained everything. Daniel, my husband, wasn't a criminal. He was a whistleblower. Years ago, while working for a defense contractor, he uncovered a ring of executives funneling illegal weapons and pocketing government funds. He tried reporting it internally. Got shut down. So he started documenting everything. Quietly. And with help from Elliot Briggs, a former investigator turned off-the-grid contact. Those recordings in the garage. Evidence for a case that never made it to court. Why? Because someone up top buried it. He faked normal life for 2 decades while feeding evidence to quiet watchdogs, one of whom was the man now sitting across from me. But why hide it from me? Yes. The man looked at me like I was the only honest person left on earth. Because loving you was real. This life wasn't. He kept them separate. To protect you. If you had known, they would have used you. My hands were shaking now. He slid a small envelope across the table. Inside was a letter. In his handwriting. "If you're reading this, then I guess I ran out of time. I never meant for you to carry this burden. But I also knew you were the only one I could trust to finish it. Not because you loved me, but because you always loved the truth." That line broke me. Thought ballooned the ending. Quiet power. I didn't go to the press. Not yet. Instead, I filed everything quietly, with the lawyer of a journalist Daniel once mentioned in his recordings. I made copies. Sent them to 3 different places in sealed envelopes. Left no trace of who I was. And then, I burned the rest. Because sometimes exposing the truth means vanishing from it. Now, I live somewhere else. New city. New name. Same dog. People ask if I'm divorced or widowed. I just smile and say, he was a good man. A quiet one. 'Cause he was. Even if the world never knows what he did behind that garage door. Do. And that's enough.